The eruptors attack the shell! Do they not know what lies within?
Hi everyone, Bandana here, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the release version of Empires of the Undergrowth, an RTS game all about ants, made by Slug Disco and published by Hooded Horse. Many thanks to them for the keys so I could play the game and do the review. The game last appeared on the channel during early access and it left me fairly impressed at the time. Since then it's obviously hit its 1.0 release and has been yet another success story for Hooded Horse. But is it all that? Have you already played the game? Let us know what you thought down below in the comments. The game is a mix of RTS, base building and at times a puzzle game, where you control a colony of ants, effectively taking on the role of the queen. The game campaign has a main ongoing story based in a laboratory and submissions at each stage, where you play as an individual colony out in the wild for just one mission. These missions let you experience the game as a different ant variety, each with their own unique qualities. And at the end of the mission, you will take one of these ants back to your main laboratory colony, usually the unique ant to whatever variety you are playing as in the mission. The entire game is very unique with some very well thought out ideas and mechanics, though it's not without a few niggling issues which I'll get into later, but let's start by talking about the campaign in a bit more detail. The game's story missions are a bit like checkpoints that you have to pass through to get to the next set of submissions. Here you are at the mercy of a rather sadistic scientist who is running experiments on you with little regard for the welfare of your ants. I don't want to spoil it too much, but in general it's very well voice acted and the script is certainly amusing in places. How this works in terms of gameplay is that each of these submissions between the lab missions provide resources and the special ants you get to add to your main colony at each level. I quite enjoyed the fact that each of these submissions are individually narrated and the colonies have their own little story. They also have a somewhat varied set of objectives which provide a welcome change from just going here and killing this. Each time you start one of these submissions you get to choose a variant of the main ant that's new to you, or the special one for that colony. For example, a ranged ant that either acts as a mortar or a rapid direct fire ant, or a medic that effectively poisons or moves faster and heals as a first responder. The premise for each mission is that you have a colony with a nest where you will be able to place down spawning tiles and various other tiles such as food storage and tiles that increase speed. Everything is underground, so you have to dig out tunnels to expand, though be careful, nasty things lurk underground other than yourselves. And of course, it's not just underground, you'll find various enemies. You're going to encounter plenty overground as well. From other insects, yes, that includes large fast-moving spiders, to also frogs, lizards, and of course other ant colonies vying for territory. Though be warned, just like your ants, many of these creatures have various special abilities. Some allow killing of multiple ants in one blow. And that can be quite important because you're going to have opponents that vary in size, and generally it's your superior numbers that carry you through, but sometimes quality can be better than quantity, and you'll have the ability to upgrade your tiles at the cost of food to make your ants stronger. At level 3 it provides some of them with extra special abilities. The ranged ant with the mortar attack, for example, gains an AoE splash ability at the 3rd tile level, really improving its capability versus groups of enemies. However, you will have to carefully manage how you spend your food, as it's fairly scarce in a lot of the missions. On occasion, the missions will gesture between quantity and quality, though other times you'll have to decide for yourself. The missions do give you various tips as you play on the right hand side. It is worth reading them all, sometimes though they are more helpful than others. The narrator will attempt to also give you warnings ahead of time if you're going to be attacked, etc. Though again, not always, but do pay attention to what he's saying. As I mentioned before, one of the things I really enjoyed was the fact you played as different types of ant colonies which had their own advantages and disadvantages, such as the leafcutter ants who had a completely different resource system. They had to collect leaves to make mold, which then fed their brood. This in turn produced toxic waste that then had to be dealt with. Or the fire ants, for example, who could form bridges over water with their bodies. Water was one of the other very clever mechanics that they'd added to the game, where it could rise and fall with the tide or as flood water, and the water would obviously kill everything in its path, but could also deposit food sources or allow fire ants to access new areas as it got higher. The game also sports a day-night cycle, which has been adapted as a major mechanic in most of the missions, where possibly different hostiles appear at night compared to the day, or various events are triggered at specific times of the day as well. For example, midday sun could simply be too hot for some types of ants, or indeed other insects. One place there's no day-night cycle is the main lab-based missions. Here it is always daytime, quote-unquote, mostly because of the lights. Gameplay generally here is about building up a large colony to be able to complete whatever major experiment will get you past the next checkpoint mission. In the lab you have a research tree where you will spend your royal jelly to purchase specific upgrades. The royal jelly is a reward provided by the various submissions and general progress. Incidentally, royal jelly is a real thing. It's produced by queens when they're old or dying, and the ants that eat it develop into new queens. See, you sometimes learn things in these games. I'm not sure when it's ever going to be useful, but maybe it'll come up in a pub quiz someday. Now, I mentioned a couple of niggling issues, and this mostly revolves around the random and very steep jumps in difficulty at times. Especially level 4 and 5 of the submissions. It's something you tend to see mentioned on the Steam forums a lot and in various reviews. Basically, it results in a change of the gameplay style, pushing you to a min-max, and in fact the whole thing more towards a puzzle game than an RTS, sadly becoming a bit more of a chore at times than fun, which is a real shame because it lets down an otherwise very enjoyable experience. Regardless, once you work your way to the end of the campaign, you unlock more ants as research options, as well as the ability to play the entire game again in a New Game Plus mode, where you keep everything you've already unlocked, but all the enemies get harder. Outside of the campaign, there's also a load more game modes to play. For example, a custom game mode where you can play on a selection of maps and set up the enemies as you desire, and you can even take your own campaign ant colony with all its upgrades into these missions as well. Or in the arcade section, you can have a battle mode to see what creatures come out on top against other creatures, a large selection of extra single missions, and even a selection of missions that are available in the demo. While the campaign is certainly the focus, there's plenty of extra content to keep you going. Okay, so there are other things to consider, not just gameplay. What about the sound and graphics? Well, the game's background music is good, though it can get a little bit repetitive at times. A little bit more variety would have helped a lot here. Outside of this, the voice acting is top notch, as are the scripts, so I do wish they could have had an option to skip some of the narrator comments during the submissions, especially the ones I was having to replay more than once. I never found a way to do it, so I'm not sure if it is possible. Sound effects are, I guess, what you would expect, lots of chittering and chattering from the insects. Now the game is reasonably pretty. It has a good variety of environments along with the day-night cycle, so it provides some reasonable visuals, and the attention to detail on the ants and other creatures is very good, though it's not the best looking game ever made. So while it's fine, I wouldn't give it any major awards here. Disco Slug have made a very unique game, with some really interesting ideas and mechanics. It provides a variety of objectives and ant types to keep things fresh, each giving a slightly different experience of running a colony. The tagline of the game should really be "Adapt to Survive." It's got a reasonably long campaign and a variety of extra missions and game modes to keep you busy, so you get plenty of bang for your buck. The only real letdown is how the difficulty of the campaign jumps about, and at times becomes more frustrating than fun to play. Your mileage will vary here, of course, depending on what you are looking for in the game. Overall, due to the amount and quality of the content, the game gets a solid 4 out of 5 from me. Even after finishing the campaign, there's plenty more to do, so in terms of hours versus cost, you will certainly get your money's worth. Again, let us know down in the comments if you've already played the game and what you thought of it as well. I'll also, as ever, leave a link to the game's Steam page down below. Thanks as always for watching. Please do like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon.